As we begin our journey into the mind of a killer, our condolences and prayers go out to the loved ones lost and those loved ones left behind. Not only innocent lives were lost, but also children's lives lost long before they started. Please take a moment and say a prayer to those involved and those affected. After watching the horrifying real crime program American Murder, The Family Next Door, Netflix viewers were terrified and curious. The documentary looks into the crimes committed in 2018 by Chris Watts, 35, who brutally murdered his 34-year-old pregnant wife Shanann and their two daughters, Bella, 4, and Celeste, 3. The show's summary, which debuted on Netflix, is, using raw, first-hand footage, this documentary examines the disappearance of Shanann Watts and her children, and the terrible events that followed. The frightening movie also includes police officer footage from when they first showed up to look into Shanann and her children's abduction, up until Chris's grisly confession. Chris is currently imprisoned at the high-security Dodge Correctional Institution, receiving 5 life sentences without the possibility of release. But there was something unusual and uncommon that helped authorities in catching him in his horrifying crime. This is the in-depth look at how police caught Chris Watts due to his body language. Let's begin. After the murders, Chris Watts calmly went back to their Colorado home after killing his wife and 2 daughters and acted like he was worried about their whereabouts. Concerned Nicole Atkinson called the police to investigate when her friend, Mrs. Watts, stopped returning her calls and messages. Watts put on a terrible act, lying to the authorities while callously seeming to care for his family. Although it originally appeared that they trusted his tale, a body language expert believes that they would have seen the warning signs that his behavior was off right away. In the Netflix documentary, American Murder, The Family Next Door, expert Derek Van Schaik has selected the horrifying moments that reveal Watts' guilt by examining body cam footage from the officers. His analysis. Van Schaik begins the 40-minute video by analyzing Watts' behavior when he initially got home. The video has received over 29 million views so far. He observes that Watts was hesitant to respond, in contrast to Shanann's friend Nicole and the police officer, who both frantically searched the outside of the house fearing that she was experiencing a medical emergency inside. When Chris finally gets home with the police standing there, he goes to the passenger side of his truck to get something, says the expert. The police officer must be thinking, she might be dying in there. Why didn't you quickly press the button to open the garage and sprint into the house to find out if your family is okay? Van Schaik also observes that Chris enters the home alone for more than a minute before letting Nicole and the cops in, which raises suspicions. According to the body language expert, Chris employed diversion evidence and diversion dialogue to displace himself as suspect number 1. In order to convince the police that his wife had decided to depart with the daughters, he used the disappearance of the girls' blankets as a diversion. When Chris pretends to find Shanann's phone, which is when Van Schaik claims the performance really begins. There are also further suspicious indicators. Because it makes the possibility that she is in real danger, it is obviously emotionally unpleasant for Nicole, who flails her hand after touching her friend's phone as if it burned her. However, Chris is able to pick it up easily. When the police notice that the phone has been turned off, which is unusual for individuals to do in their houses, more questions are raised. Derek also goes on to compare the nervous behavior displayed by Watts and the nervous behavior displayed by Nicole. Both are deeply concerned and can be seen pacing up and down, but Derek explains how Watts' behavior is directed inwards for himself, while Nicole's is directed outward because she's worried about Shanann. Things are not adding up and starting to raise concerns. Chris is coming across very negative and not proactive. When we lose someone or something we really want back, even long-shot ideas are worth trying. The body language expert continues, and he takes too long to call the girls' school to check on them. Watts ignores the notion of checking at security footage right away to try to find any clue about the departure of his family, which screams guilty. At this point, all fingers are pointed to Chris Watts. Chris responds with a simple okay, when he is told that the camera footage shows he was the only person to leave the house that day. According to the body language specialist, he is acting like the dumbest person on earth. in an effort to make a significant discovery appear minor in front of the police. Van Schaik also draws attention to the fact that Watts continues glancing at his phone and does not provide any answers, suggesting that he may be messaging his mistress. Later, the body language expert describes an unbelievable scene when Watts and the police visit the neighbor's home to view their security footage. When Chris realizes the officer is really looking at the video, he gulps and turns away from the TV and buries his head in his phone to mentally escape. According to the body language expert, constant defending and explaining implies guilt. He draws attention to how Watts repeatedly turns and heads toward the door in an effort to avoid seeing the camera footage, and also because he wants to get away. All this, with other things, led to his confession. It's possible that viewers of the Netflix documentary missed another fact that exposed Chris. In an effort to show his innocence, the murderer volunteered to take a polygraph test, which ultimately led to his exposure. The interview, which lasted an astounding 7 hours, however, appeared to have been recorded for the program. Chris's results shocked officials, not only because the test showed he was lying, but also because they were so low. According to reports, anxious Chris received a polygraph test result of -18. His result is extremely damning, considering that a person's typical score to suggest that they are lying is roughly -4. Chris's test results alerted the police and caused him to become anxious, even though they could not be used as evidence in court. Finally, he admitted to killing Shanann, stuffing her body into the trunk of the family car, and then driving 45 minutes to an oil field. He killed Bella, the oldest daughter, as she attempted to flee when they got to the oil field, after first smothering Celeste with her favorite blanket. After disposing of his 2 kids' bodies in an oil tanker and burying his wife in a shallow grave, Watts went back to the family home and reported all 3 of them missing. So yeah, a full circle. According to Stephen Lambert, the attorney assisting the family of Shanann Watts in a wrongful death lawsuit. The night in question, Shanann came home. She and Chris had got into a fight. They made up. They were getting along really well. Later on, they got into a fight again. In that fight, he essentially confessed to having an affair, that he wanted a divorce, that it was pretty much over between them. And she had said something to the effect of, "Well, you're not going to see the kids again." And this led to the tragic incident that continues to give goosebumps to anyone who hears about it. As today's video comes to an end, we looked at an individual who made a conscious decision to kill his entire family. I hope you found today's video informative and eye-opening. Do not forget to click the like button and subscribe to our channel down below. Smashing the bell icon will make sure you never miss any of our upload content. Lastly, do let us know your comment and what you liked about today's video and why. It's unfortunate to see into the mind of a killer and try to make sense as to why anyone would commit such a vicious act of murder. Until then, stay safe, and we look forward to seeing you in our next true crime video.